All right, guys. So we are on to the third video, but the fourth key knowledge point. So this is 2.2.4 market research practices such as data collection techniques, analysis, and interpretation. All right, so what actually is market research? So we have already briefly looked at this, but market research is effectively a systematic procedure used to develop and analyze new and existing information. All right, so uh, pretty much just looking at the market size, what your consumers are going to like, dislike, product positives, negatives, the promotion effectiveness, packaging effectiveness, and degree of threat from competitors. All right, so it is working to minimize the risk. Yeah, so before actually putting a product out there, developing it, putting all this money into it, is it actually worthwhile? How much of it do you actually need? All right. And the step process is define the problem, collect the required data, and analyze and interpret the data. All right. The information obtained through market research. So we did briefly look at that, but here's just a much more in-depth explanation. So potential market changes and new trends. So businesses can identify what competitors are offering in the market and new opportunities, which have not been implemented to attract new customers. Business can determine what existing customers expect from products and which products they are willing to purchase. So that's looking at the preferences, attitudes, and behaviors of customers, how effective a new product is, so whether existing and potential customers are actually willing to purchase a new product to actually determine if it's worthwhile, if it's going to be successful. What level of competition is in the market, so the business can determine how many competitors obtain the most sales in a market, so looking at your market share, and whether it would be possible to compete in this market. And then you have the needs of potential customers. So businesses can identify who their potential customers are as well as their needs. Understanding potential customers enable businesses to decide whether they can produce products to satisfy these needs. All right, different types of research that can be undertaken. So exploratory, collecting information in an unstructured or informal manner. So using the product or service, gaining an impression. Descriptive research, so research that incorporates consumers' attitudes, intentions, and behavior. Observations or consumer behavior is an example. And then you've got your casual research, so actually looking at the cause and effect of certain actions. So if we change the price, is that going to skyrocket the level of sales that we have? The data collection techniques. So most of you probably have a little bit of an idea about primary and secondary data, but primary data is information collected for the first time by the business for their research purposes, whereas secondary data is information which has already been collected for another purpose. All right, so the advantage of secondary data is that it's cheaper and way more time efficient because you're not the ones that are actually having to collect the data, okay? So usually you can just go online, look at what's there, what information's there, and use that. Whereas primary, you're actually having to run different collection techniques, collection methods in order to find out. The disadvantage is that it won't be specific to business needs, and it's not always going to be necessary if secondary data is relevant to business research. All right. So pretty much the advantages and disadvantages of secondary data are the reverse for primary. All right. And then you've got it classified as either quantitative, which is number and figures, or qualitative, which is descriptive and non-numerical. So particular primary data collection techniques. So surveys are probably one of the most popular ones. So this is a research method which involves asking questions to collect data from a group of people. Focus groups are also quite popular. Small group of people who are brought together to discuss their opinions on topics such as the product features and benefits. You've got experimentation, which is providing quantitative data. These experiments help business determine what specific factor leads to purchase of a product. And then you've got observation as well. So that is literally just watching how the customers use the product, interact with it, what their behavior looks like before and during their purchase. All right. And then you've got your secondary. So a few different ones. Company records. So company provides quantitative data. That could be on sales records, net profit, market share within a given period. An internet search, so literally just Googling any business you want to look at and looking at their sales or information about the products they're selling. Government agencies, so provides quantitative data. Many government agencies publish information relevant for market research. This information is collected by an external source. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, or the ABS, is probably the most common and beneficial site to look at statistics of businesses because it just has all the information there. And that one is going to be one that you are definitely going to need to use for your SAC for this topic. All right. And then you do have a few more different options that you can use. Obviously, some of you probably have already seen this sort of thing before. So things like email blasts. So you may get regular emails from businesses, and that is a form of seeing how many people actually are opening the link or how many people are engaging with that. And then your secondary data, annual reports are always a good one. Newspaper, just wherever you can find information about particular things. And then the last slide is how we actually collect and analyze this data. So after collecting data, businesses must analyze and interpret the findings to draw meaning from the data. Statistical interpretation analysis is the process of focusing on the data that represent average, typical, or deviations from typical patterns. You then tabulate the data, so actually put it into a table format. The data is then considered, means, frequencies, correlation, trend analysis. Obviously, this is easier with quantitative data because you are going to be more easily able to find your average. Yeah. The data is tested and compared to identify trends and changes in customer attitudes and behaviors. And data interpretation involves a business examining the reason for changes in customer attitudes or explaining why there are certain market trends. And finally, it then enables the business to make effective decisions. Okay, so why do we collect data? That is pretty much it. It is just going to allow the business to make a far more informed decision about whether to launch a product, whether they need to target different customers, whether they need to make changes to their current goods or services, anything that pretty much relates to the business, you're going to need to collect some sort of data and then analyze it.